One day I was coming back from a university like every day as usual. I met a young man at the door of the building where I live with my family. He stared at me for a few seconds and then left. I was amazed at the way he looked at me, but soon I forgot about it and didn't care. I was busy preparing food for the big fast. Since my mother's death, I have been busy at home and serving my father. Several times he asked me to hire a girl to help me around the house. But I refused because my mother taught me everything. I am very jealous of my father, and that is why he did not marry after that. He knows how much it bothers me to have another woman in his life after my mother. On the first day of fasting, we and all the people in the building gather. Most of its residents are either our friends or family. I called my neighbor Sarah. She is my friend and the wife of my uncle who died 5 years ago. I told her not to forget our rituals. It is gathering on the first day of fasting to break the fast together. Sarah apologized for not being able to come. I asked her why, and she told me that her cousin had come from traveling. He does not have a mother or father, and she wants to break the fast with him so that he will not be upset and feel lonely. I told her to invite him to our house and break his fast with us. After long discussions, she accepted my request. With tiredness and exhaustion, on the first day of fasting and preparing food, my father came to help me prepare dinner, and I called Sarah to come and help me as well. Today was tiring as I am not yet used to fasting. I couldn't stand being in the kitchen on my own. Sarah came down before the meal started and saved me. The honorable family came to us, and they were my uncles and their wives, my aunt's daughters, my father's best friend, my aunt Mona and her son. After they came, Sarah's cousin knocked on the door. As I was coming out of the kitchen door, carrying a plate of dates in my hand, I found the young man who was staring at me as he entered through the door of our house. I asked, "Who is this?" with admiration. Sarah replied, "He is Ollie, my cousin, whom I told you about." I greeted him and asked him to enter. He told us about his life and work, but without going into details. My father comforted him and told him not to hesitate to come to us. When we finished eating, he asked me for the toilet to wash his hands and gave me an innocent smile. And all the guests returned to their homes after they finished eating, drinking tea, and eating sweets. I finished cleaning the house. It was a really hard day, but I love that habit. We've been doing this since my mother was with us. I couldn't sleep that day. I started thinking about Ollie and his looks and smiles. I called Sarah and told her I would come over to spend some time with her. I slyly asked her about her cousin and his life. She told me about his life as he told us in the session, but she told me that his mother was cheating on her husband, and when she found out that he knew everything about her, she killed him. What I heard scared me a lot, as I had never heard such a story before, but I felt sorry for his bleak life and what he had been through. After the end of the month of fasting, my father, my family, and of course Sarah and I went out for the first day of Eid, and Ollie came with her. This time our meeting was not limited to just a smile and a simple question. We got over it and started talking more. He asked me for my phone number, and since that meeting, we started getting closer every day. I told Sarah about my feelings for him and she said he felt the same way. I told Sarah about my feelings for him and she said he felt the same way. I was very happy, and one day I was watching TV with my father, and he told me that Ollie proposed to me. By the time she smiled, his face changed. I paused for a moment and looked at the TV to show him that I didn't care. He repeated my name twice, Dana, but I did not hear it, as I was thinking of Ollie. My father told me that he completely refused my marriage to him as he knew the story of Ollie's family that Sarah had told me. I told him I knew that. But he told me something new. Ollie knew many girls before he traveled. I told him that he had nothing to do with what his mother did to his father, and that he was put in harsh conditions for no fault of his, and that I like it very much. My father believed what I told him. When I got engaged, I asked Ollie not to go back to the girls he had an affair with. And indeed he did. I know Ollie loves me, and what makes me trust him the most is the testimony of Sarah, his cousin, who is my friend, my neighbor, and my sister. On the day of my wedding, my father asked me to think about that marriage again. On the day of my wedding, my father asked me to think about that marriage again. He told me that maybe he would become like his mother's, but I argued with him until I convinced him. I know that my father loves me very much, because I am his only daughter. It's very normal for him to be so tense. 2 years after my marriage, God blessed me with Sarah, whom I named after my friend and neighbor. I was very happy when I decided that. I know she deserves it. It is enough that she is the reason behind my marriage to Ollie and my great love for him. I had been married for 5 years, and since then my relationship with Ollie has changed. He was suspicious of my actions and my words to my friends. He didn't want me to leave the house, but I was adamantly reluctant. I have a respectable job that I got after suffering and waiting for a long time. I always complained to my father about what my husband was doing, but he always blamed me. And tell me this is the result of your choice, you must bear it. And one day, while I was collecting dirty laundry to put in the washing machine, I found a girl's perfume on his shirt, and that's where it got worse. I couldn't speak to anyone about what I noticed, so I decided to hold it until I found something powerful with which to talk. When I came home from work early, I found him talking to a girl. And when he saw me, he hung there and couldn't talk to me. Then he told me that she is a customer of the bank where he works. She asked him to call her and talk to her, but she was talking to him as a customer, nothing more. I couldn't believe he wasn't talking to her and that she was just a customer. I showed him that I regret doubting him so that he would believe that I would never watch him or pursue him like that again. One day, I was going to an old friend of mine from college, and I found my husband's car parked next to a coffee shop. I went to see what he was doing there during his working time. I found him with a strange girl I don't know. I went to him and told him in a calm voice that I was going to my father's house and that he sent me my divorce papers. Even though my father and husband's house is in the same building, I did not meet him, even if by chance. He talked to my father about his remorse for what he had done and that he would never betray me again. Something inside me stirred and I began to seek an excuse for him because despite everything I love him very much. But I did not agree to go back with him and asked to stay for a while at my father's house to collect my thoughts. After a few weeks, I decided to go to him and tell him I forgave him. When I opened my door, I heard his voice with a girl inside. My hand trembled at that moment. I don't want to step forward so as not to see him. Maybe I can't stand the ugliness of the situation, but I gathered my strength and went towards the sound and saw something I had never imagined in my life. At that moment I did not feel myself, and because of the long periods of severe depression I passed out. When I woke up from the fainting state I had been subjected to, I found my father standing in front of me, crying over the condition of his only daughter. A month later, my father told me about Ali's suicide after what I saw in the room. He told me that he left me messages telling me about his betrayal throughout my marriage, especially with the girl you saw him with. It's Sarah, his cousin, my friend, my neighbor, and my sister. I was not shocked by Ali in that situation, but what made me tantalize and not feel myself being my husband's mistress, Sarah. Sarah, after whom I named my daughter, and whom I considered a friend and sister to me.